Today I'm going to work on this cow here, and I'm choosing this cow because there's high contrast to value and is a very simple shape to that cow, so it's not very complex. Today we're going to talk about atmospheric style painting according to edges. And just to clarify atmosphere, there's two ways to consider atmosphere. One way is through the usage of edges, which means the majority of your edges in the painting are going to be soft. That's atmospheric painting with considering edges. Another way to look at atmospheric painting is to give the perception of depth. So as an example, as things disappear into the distance, they'll get lighter and bluer, meaning that there's some gradation going on with incorporating atmosphere, with like particularly towards like landscape. That's pretty important. Or not real important, but that's something that a lot of people consider. And those are kind of two different things. I just kind of want to point that out. So edges, considering atmosphere, is a little bit more abstract, that you're still working more two-dimensional that way. So you can have something in the foreground that is very soft or has a lot of soft edges. So we're just incorporating the usage of edges, and that's not trying to create an atmospheric illusion of depth. Although it could, like if you're adding gradation with edge, that could incorporate both. So you could say, I'm creating atmosphere with depth and atmosphere with edges at the same time. So it's possible to incorporate both. But there are two different things. So when we're talking edges, it's not talking about atmosphere of depth in the painting. And the usage of colors for my palette, I've got a variety of stuff, but I think for today I'm going to use a lot of Van Dyke Brown. So I'm going to consider more gray tones rather than going full on bright chromas. And that's just going to get easier to work with the value system that way. You know, if I start to incorporate color theory and all that, it might slow down the process of the painting. So it'll be sort of like a harmonizing color with the Van Dyke Brown. So I'm actually just starting with the value of the cow, which is kind of white. But I'm just trying to find the placement of the cow and the value of the cow, even though I have a white on white canvas here. A white cow on the white canvas. It's not going to stand out very strongly.
So you're just adding just a little bit of
So I'm
brown.
adding a little bit of Van Dyke Brown, the white, and some other colors. I've got ultramarine blue, a little bit of Napsol red, and a little bit of oxide yellow. So start things with, I'm going to be starting thin. Find the placement of where I want the cow within the composition. I also do this with watercolor. I'll just start with value. Not always. So when I'm doing watercolor, sometimes I'll put in the pencil lines to divide the space. I rarely get into full-on pencil drawing with watercolors, although I do sometimes. You know, if I want something that's going to be fairly accurate, then I might do a drawing. But even with watercolors, I'll start with the same sort of technique here. And this is called blocking in. So you're just using values to find placements. And right now I'm just trying to find the placement of where this cow is going to be in the format that I'm working. So I have an 8x10, and the format of the image is pretty close to 8x10, if not 8x10. But when I'm placing this cow here, I'm looking, from maybe where the feet are to the bottom, the head to the side, the tail to that side. So I'm finding the spatial relationship where that cow is going to be placed. And that's why I want to start with the cow, because to me that's the important part of the painting, that statement of that light shape. So I want to make sure that the placement is in a good spot. And it's got a little friend behind him. Little happy friend. It's a sheep. And I am actually starting out a little thick this time. Yeah, thick on the paint. Just go faster, I think. Yeah. Just in the mood for going thicker. So now I'm putting in the tree line, which is pretty dark. And that's just Van Dyke brown and olive green. This painting's going to be really gray. There is green in it. Yep. Just a little bit of olive, touch of olive green. This is going to be a Van Dyke brown harmony. Yep. I'm just using mineral spirit to thin it down with. Yeah, Gamsol. I'm just sort of testing the value of the grass. That's too dark. And I have two choices. I mean, I could use the canvas. I could treat this like a watercolor and just use the canvas as the medium to create the lighter value, which does speed up the process of the painting. And so a lot of times vice versa, I treat sometimes that oil like a watercolor. And right now I'm just trying to fill in the space to try to find where that cow really is too. The cow's positioned, but the drawing's not quite there yet. So right now I'm just blocking in. And I'm kind of treating this like, if I was on location painting this fella, I would be moving this quick. Especially this ball would be moving around and not staying still. So you would have to improvise even more. So if you can see, I'm trying to get those edges right now. So this is going to be an atmospheric painting, and I'm still trying to make sure that the edges are defined. So my approach is more graphic, meaning that the edges are sharp. So I want to keep the edges sharp, and then that way when I start to soften, I can decide which ones to soften later on. Correct. Yeah, create the edge first before you lose it. And by adding I'm adding some white to that what's happening back there. The white is cooling down to temperature, which is kind of nice because it's also kind of that cooler tone is reflecting the color of the sky, which in this case is still pretty gray, even though it's a light and shadow sunny day. I'm just making everything very grayish. Van Dyke brown and ultramarine. So it's pretty heavy on the Van Dyke brown, the sky. I mean, I could make it bluer, but I'm not worried about color today. Yep. Yeah, it's very gray. Wait. No, this is a 11 by 14 panel.
No.
What's that?
It looks like the smaller than that, 8 by 11.
Oh, I mean this. I'm sorry. 8 by 10. Thank you. I was talking about my palette. That's right. Yeah, it's, how dare you argue with me?
Perhaps we would have gone, oh, okay.
Right.
11 no more.
All right, 11 by 14. It's not a cow. Cow. Cows are cute. Right here? Yeah, it is. Yeah, happy accident. It is pretty cool. And this is feeling more and more like a watercolor the way I'm treating it because it's so thin. For the most part, there's some parts that are thicker. Like some parts of the cow are pretty thick. So now I've sort of reached the area where I feel like I've blocked in enough. It's not perfect. As you can see, obviously the cow is not that shape. Neither is that little sheep back there. So I've got some room around there for a little bit of adjustments if I need to. And so sometimes, I'll leave that little empty space there. So now if I need to refine the shape, I have room to refine it. My Van Dyke Brown is actually kind of drying up already. I poured it out on Saturday. I finally put my glasses on so I can see. I've gotten to that point in the painting, right?
Everything's atmosphere.
Right.
No hard
So now if I'm going to start to consider the drawing of the cow, I want to go with the shadow side, which from a distance you're probably not going to be able to see it. But if you zoom in on the image, you can see the breast of the cow there that's really dark. And it's just a little bit darker than the grass. So already, with those two differences, there's a little bit of a soft edge between the two. Because the value and also color are pretty close to each other. Yep. So with atmospheric painting, you just have fewer sharps. And right now I've got multiple sharps. And the reason for that is because if you don't have sharps, you really don't know where your edges are. So right now I'm just determining where those edges are placed. And then once I determine where they're placed, more or less, then I can start to decide on which ones to soften and which ones to keep. But if I start out soft edge all the way through, that's going to take away some decision making. It could work. I could get lucky and have that work. But I like to kind of decide where I'm going to keep some of these edges and where to soften some other ones. So you can see I'm starting to move in with the drawing. So there's at this stage, I am doing the drawing part. Before it was more the block end, trying to find the values of the masses and colors. Even if my color is pretty simple, like for the sheep back here, it is a little bit of a different color than the cow there. And so that's got a tint of more of an orange red in it. But right now, I can move into there and start to, decide more on the actual drawing of where that sheep is and the edges around it, which draw it out. I really, just for the shadows, it's just Van Dyke Brown, straight out of the tube. I mean, almost to a point where it's monochromatic, but just the separation of that green and the blue is what's, and there's actually touches of red. Because I did use some of the naphthol red. Mostly in the sheep. There's a little bit in the cow, too. Yeah. There's actually, so the cow has a touch of ultramarine blue. So that cools the cow down more. And if you look at the cow, there's a lot of color shifts in that cow. It's very subtle. I would actually like to do a larger painting of this. See what happens. Get some of those subtleties. As you can see, I'm just sort of carving, going into the edge and carving it out. And I like to use that word carving because it does feel like I'm chiseling out a piece of wood. And I'm just trying to get the real basics down. There's a lot of little stuff that happens in there, like the part where the cast shadow of the head is onto the. There's a lot of detail right there. And so I know that part, I'm probably going to keep that section fairly sharp. because I want to draw some attention to it. And since there's such small shapes, it's probably a good idea to keep it sharp. The head, yeah, the cast shadow of the head, I think that's a really cool looking shape. Oh, and I am going thicker with the paint now. And so I'm putting one stroke down, leaving it, sort of attitude. I'm trying to think. Yeah, usually my brushes are rounds, but I also use these for
Use what?
the bristles.
Yeah.
For oil painting. I use it for watercolor too. No, so this is filbert.
Oh, filbert.
Yeah. It's rounded at the tip. Yeah. Yeah, they're great because they create kind of a nice organic shape to the tip. The basics drawing of the cow is there. So most of the time it's going to be spent carving out edges. I have a filbert for the small one, and it's a 0. And to get some of that real thin stuff, I would need almost like a double or triple 0 for this kind of a 0 that they have. It's not very tiny. But I'll show you some tricks. I do have some tricks up my sleeve. Yeah, or hacks, right? More hazel hacks. Now, if I want to soften an edge, I'm going to show you. I'm going to start flicking this brush up. That's starting to soften edge already. That's more atmospheric, yep. Yes, now that we're softening an edge.
So you have to put the edge in first before you can make it.
Correct, yeah. It's much safer because I'm not moving that edge. I am moving it a little bit because I wanted this shape to kind of bow up a little bit more. So I am pushing the edge a little bit as I'm softening it, so it's got more of an arc to it. And I kind of like that because it kind of represents some of the arc I see in that bowl there too. But I'm not going to soften all the edges up there. There might be a good majority I soften, but not all of them. And if you look at what I just did, this one is a pretty long soft. That one's a little bit shorter, sharp right there. This has some softness to it already, and then a little flick of the brush up that way. So there's almost 3 points where I'm pulling the paint upward, and you can see all 3 are different in their widths. So if this is watercolor, I could do the same thing. Let that paint maybe dry first. So the watercolor, the sky there, I would let that paper dry. And then I'd take a wet brush and then do a dry brush with it, with thicker paint, with less water in it, to get that nice dark streak going up. So what I'm trying to show you right now is the paint's moving upward. That's giving some movement that's moving up. So that soft edge also has some movement to it. Gives you some variety of greens, and also gives me a little bit more variety of edges. And so if it's watercolor, if it's wet on wet, that creates an automatic soft edge, which can be controlled slightly, and other times you just gotta hope that it's going to work.
But otherwise, you just let it dry.
Now, that's soft already, so then I consider, okay, where do I want the sharps? If that's going to be soft, then I might have some sharps up along in here, or have that be read sharper. And therefore, if you think of this section as one shape, because there's a high contrast edge right there and a high contrast edge above it. So those 2 edges play off of each other, top and below. And so if I'm going to make that one soft, it's probably a good idea to make this one sharp so that they're varied. If they're both equally soft, it could work. And then if I decide to do that, then I just have to realize that the eye is moving up and down that direction. Decide whether that's going to be soft or sharp. If it's going to be sharp, I know that the viewer is going to go to it. And so if everything's going to be atmospheric, the eye is going to gravitate towards the sharper edges. And I already have an idea. I like the sheep there, and I like it as a sharp. I think that would be a nice little sharp edge. I think the very back of where the tail is, that might be a good sharp. And then this side of the face is going to be a good sharp. This is all going to be considered like one sharp, but that's going to undulate. It's going to have softs and sharps within all that. And obviously then, is with the form, and the way the light's moving around that form, below right here is going to be very soft. So I already kind of have a basic idea of where to take it at this stage. Doesn't mean that's gonna be it, but that gives me sort of like a goal in mind of where to take it. So being I want the top of that sheet to be sharp, I'm going to paint in the shadow side right now. And that's going to already starting to soften down that edge. You can consider this maybe like a half tone right there. So that's already softening and explaining maybe some form right there. Yeah. I did do a watercolor, but it's graphic. A graphic watercolor. I'm a graphic style painter, so that's just yeah. I prefer graphic. I mean, that's just who I am. That's just how I like to paint. So today's kind of different for me. I'm really trying to lose edges. So this isn't normally how I paint, but it is fun. And if you are, like, I consider myself hard-edged painter, but it doesn't mean I can't do a painting where it's all about soft edges. So you can like do something different. So it doesn't mean it has to like completely define you as an artist. Now I'm starting to soften the edge at the underbelly of the cow here, and I'm working with some of the form to kind of help explain that. And I already painted the color of the cow, and that paint's already wet. And so as I paint in this form here, I'm also going to be picking up what's already down. So I'm kind of doing some mixing on the painting itself, which will make some of this softening easier. And this really is just it's an 8x10, so it's not, I mean 11x14. Right. So I don't have to like spend forever on it, you know, because if it was like a huge painting, then there's going to be different amounts of detail. I'm going to have different focuses on different parts. Like if I do plan on painting a larger version, I'm not sure if it'll work or not, but doing a larger version means I'm going to do more drawing. There's some detail in there I might play more with on a larger piece. But for something this size, I'm just going to pick out little details and try to keep things pretty simple. So this is what you'd be called painting in an edge. Because you can see I'm taking sort of steps. There's a half-tone step right there, and these plane shifts soften down that edge. And that's painting in the edge to soften it. I'm actually throwing in a little bit of dioxin purple right now too. So I think I'm starting to just give it a little bit more color. There's a plane shift that's happening right there. These little plane shifts help to give form. If I wanted to sharpen an edge, or maybe bring some emphasis to an edge, let's put it that way. And I was talking about that tail, the very tip of it. I think I want to bring a little emphasis to that tip. So I'm painting it sharp. And that little touch of that blue violet right there, this pure color, sort of strengthens that edge, or just kind of makes that edge vibrate a little bit. So it's going to bring the viewer to that edge a little bit more. In color theory, that would be a discord color. So we got a lot of grays. and then the bright colors become discord. And it's also, really it's actually a red-green. You know, being that the Van Dyke browns are red, and there's a lot of green. So the color theory kind of is red-green, and then that purple's also discord within that color theory. So I can now, you know, if I want to carve out that face, and I think that's where I want all the detail, right there, right around that face. And so that's where the majority of the sharps are going to be placed right around in there, that section. So the back of the cow, I'm still haven't really quite decided on the edge work. And that actually might even become more atmospheric. Well, it's like more of like what if. And there's all kinds of form in this cow. I just love the form. I mean, that's the nice thing about being in the classroom environment rather than just on Zoom, is I can come around and work on your painting, you know, and show you the brush. Because I remember that was so beneficial when I was studying with Quan or Mark Daly. When they'd finally pick up the brush, I was like, yay! I could see what to do right. And they would do it so simply. Like, oh, okay. It's that simple. To create form, correct. Right now it's to create form. There's a real sharp edge right there that I'm still maybe considering resharpening. I just softened it for the moment. The belly, that's already soft because the values are so close. So that's value relationship softens an edge or sharpens. Paint quality, so here I'm manipulating the paint, that's going to soften an edge. And then the third way is when I paint in those plane shifts, I'm painting in the soft edge or painting in an edge that's sharper. So those are the three ways of affecting the edges. But there's multitudes of ways to soften an edge. And sometimes you can be gutsy with it, like that's pretty gutsy, right? That softens that edge. It is daring. It held my breath. I don't know, it's kind of cool. Right? Use your finger. It almost gives form like the cow's moving or moving back that way. See, by doing that those two edges are still soft, but this actually now appears a little bit sharper. Everything's a little bit relative. And I'm just sort of doing it as an experiment to see what happens. And this is atmospheric painting. That's why I'm also doing this. So I'm trying to push edges. It does. So now the whole painting's starting to feel more and more atmospheric, right? That's super bold. That was terrifying, right? Yep. But I'm really just trying to see how soft I can go. And I'm trying to treat this like it's a project, an exercise, and not just trying to do what I know how to do. And that's what I'm trying to get at with today. What we're trying to do today is, have some fun, even if it's scary. I love that now. That is so cool. What's that? It's like it's raining or something, or you caught something in your eye, or isn't that really cool? And that almost sharpens that back out again. Just add water? Yeah. You can smear with your thumb and watercolor. There's all kinds of stuff. So you just have to experiment with the paint. And that's what we're trying to get at with this month is paint application. Some paint quality. And that is paint quality right there. And if you look at it, that's a texture. And that texture is repeated again in a different way right there. And so that's why that kind of also feels like it works, because you can see it repeated, but a different way. If I lose too much, I could see if I could try to bring it back. And that's part of it too, is to try to figure out how to bring back an edge. So we're softening edges, but sometimes you need to bring an edge back. He's attitude, right? A real good attitude. And now I kind of miss some of those sharps, but I can put them back in. I think I wanted to get rid of them first just to see what would happen. All right, yeah, I agree. I kind of miss that edge. I'm going to do this. I'm going to really soften it. Really get rid of it. It's actually kind of cool that way. It's almost like it doesn't matter how much I do to it. Since I established it, it's always there. But I agree. I am gonna bring it back. I'm just trying to see what to do with some of the texture. I'm using a big fat filbert. Yep. Big fat filbert. But I'm pretty much in the territory of atmosphere style painting. See, I'm reserving that because I know that that's sharp. So that to me, like, I know it's not finished, but mentally it's going to be easy just to go in there and just dig at the details. So that's just going to take time for something like that. But if the rest of this doesn't work, the detail doesn't matter. So I'm trying to make sure that the whole composition works first, especially with what I'm doing to the edges here. Is just so kind of daring. If that doesn't work, then why waste time?
That part that's black there on the right, behind the tail, that you just worked on.
Oh, this right here? Yeah. I like the texture I created with that. Yeah, I'm really just treating this like a quick little study. Now let me sharpen that edge back out. I'm actually going to work on this because I don't like where that, see how the edge moves up right there? I don't like that. It's getting too tall. Hump back. Now he's got, see, I'm going to move it down like that. There, he's an old cow. See that, and also I just want to show you, that's still a soft edge, but you can see I pushed the edge. So you have to be aware of that. If you're pushing the edge, you're pushing the drawing. So now that cow's like this. That's got a bad back. He's an old cow. So I wanted to do that first because I needed to work on that. I'm going to sharpen it. So I wanted to kind of reposition that edge first before working over it. And that's not where the edge was. So I needed to darken that area down to redefine that edge. Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I wanted that. So, and if you looked at what I did there, I started out with a longer one, then I stopped and I got that little bump that's there. And then I went with the muscles that go along the hip bone from the vertebrae and went up a little bit with that. I still haven't put in the bone actually for the hip bone. Wouldn't be a bad thing to come to think of it. There we go. Yes. But right here, there's an overlay of the edges where it's kind of doing something like that. And that does give a little bit more form. Before it was pretty flat, which is fine. Like if I wanted to keep with that very high contrast, like how this tail still does it, that would have worked too. I just wanted to kind of, use this as more of like an exercise, more like a teaching sort of a thing. And I don't want just one violet edge. It'd be good to have another edge that's another purple somewhere. I'm going to change up the purple, so this more reddish tint to it. This one has dioxin purple and ultramarine blue in it. And this one, it's just pure dioxin purple. And I think right along in there, just to sharpen that edge back up. so that those two kind of vibrate with each other, with the color. I think it looks like more like a pig now. It's pinkish. Does he? Okay, good. A rock. What's that?
What is the violet that you use? Is violet?
Dioxin purple.
Oh, dioxin purple.
Yep, that's it. Yep. I'm going to put the legs in. Yeah, the legs aren't. Yeah, that'll ground it more. Yeah. Yeah, less like a rock. Does look like a rock. I still think it looks like a pig. Without legs. I just wanted to redefine that shadow first before I put the legs in, because then I don't have to paint around the legs. Just put that in, keep it simple. So this is atmospheric painting still. Very atmospheric. So with atmospheric painting, you want some good distinction of edges still. So this is sharp, and that's a small sharp right there. And that's almost it for like sharp sharps. There's not a lot of sharp edges. Sharps around the face. But then it's all a little bit relative. Like the tail is sharper than the back. It's just how the Christmas, that pure white against that burnt umber, or that Van Dyke brown. And this, you can see when I went back on top of it, I lightened it up. And it's also because I wanted that edge to read softer than that edge. So the value relationship here is closer than it is over there. And that's the other reason of why I wanted to maybe not have that dark patch of grass back there, so that there's more variations of that edge. And if I wanted that dark shape back there, no problem. I'd just make that real sharp, maybe soften that down. So I would just change, my idea of what I wanted. It's almost like there's no wrong answer to anything, but there are definitely wrong solutions, if that makes sense. I just came up with that. Is that a good quote? There's a little fence post. One of those metal ones. I mean, I could put it in. Let's see if I just put it in straight. So if I put it in now, I'm going to decide spatially where it is, in between the cow. And this would be a good place for it. So I do something like that. It's more organic. That feels more like one of those wooden fence posts, and that would work. But if I wanted it straight, I mean, one other trick is to put your pinky on like the edge of the canvas, and that would do it too. Well, actually, let me just do it. Yeah. So if I want to make this straighter, so how straight that is compared to that? I kind of like it like that. To get a dowel stick, and I just use this like a ruler. And that's another trick to some. But I also use the dowel stick for architecture. So if I had a vanishing point, I could use the dowel stick for that vanishing point. And that's sort of like quick on perspective. Super quick. But I also have this for steadying my hand. So now I'm getting into the detail of the painting. And I could apply it this way, just freehand it. And that's fine too. And quite often that's what I do. But right now I'm just going to get to the details. I'm going to scoot up closer to the painting because I want to kind of get some careful drawing with a lot of that. And looking at this really cool shadow shape I'm mixing in, what do I have? Oh, this is blue, the new blue I got. I only just started using it. I don't know what's in it. It's called Smelt Blue. That's a cool name. So I just bought it. S-M-A-L-T. Smalt. Dumont's Blue is another name for it. Oh, it says pigment to purple. That's what it says. It says it's a purple. Pigment V, so V is for violet, number 15. But it's definitely blue. It's definitely a blue.
Glassy, effect, something that's been cooked, small,
Okay.
metallic
Yeah.
colors, yeah.
So it must be, I don't know, that on my palette it almost looks like indigo. So I'm trying to look at all these different numbers. I don't know what a number 15 would be. But I was looking on the back because I wanted to see if it was a mix. If it's a mix, there would be two numbers. But this one just says pigment violet number 15, whatever that is. Hopefully it's not too toxic. But I'm using that now for I'm using more of this now on the cast shadow right here of its head casting onto its shoulder. And that's just to draw attention to it, that shape. Because everything else is so gray and, just Van Dyke brown, really. This is the only one that has, other than some of these discords, the only one that really has color to it. See, now I'm just taking all my time and, looking for the detail. There's a little tiny cache or edge side of the skull right about here. So I'm just trying to find the placement of where that is. I will. Yeah, but I want to find out where this section is, because that's also where the horn's going to be. That's going to help me find where the ear is. Yep. Yeah, because there's the other side of the skull is right over here. That's where the other horn starts. It's just a small little indication. And it's those little things that start to make the shapes feel more specific. And so by finishing off the painting, I'm just now zooming in to these small areas. Nose was defined pretty quickly, yeah. That's a pretty simple shape. Yep. Yeah, I'm really trying to find the size of that shadow right there. And then, of course, there's the eye sockets. There's the eye. Right? It's just a little bit of detail. That's all it is. It's just implied. Because then we have where the other horn is. Kind of comes through right about here. Now I'm going to go for the ear. That shadow does move in a little bit more. So I can make small, minute changes according to where that ear is. And this is actually the fun part of the painting where, if I stopped now, I could probably sign it. Call it quits if I really wanted to, if I needed to. Go home or whatever. But there's still a lot to do. I feel like there's still ample amount of stuff to do with the painting. Yeah, I mean, there's others. Yeah, besides details on the face, there's details around in here, maybe fine tuning the legs and stuff, and put it on the rock legs. That's right. The eyes have hills and the rocks have legs.
I was on a cruise with Alaska some years ago.
So what if I wanted, there's wires to this fence. So I'm going to use a dowel stick for the maul stick for these little wires. Now, ideally, it would be great if I had like a two-haired brush to put those wires down with. That would be ideal. But since I don't, what I try to do is on my palette, I sculpt the tip of the brush to a point. So I kind of roll the brush around, and it's a filbert, so it'll kind of roll that paint more into a point. And I could try to put that in freehand and maybe get away with it. But what's actually a little bit easier is the dowel stick. If I put the dowel stick right there, I can use the dowel stick as a way to kind of navigate how much hair from the tip of the brush hits the canvas. And it's going to follow a straight line, so if I line it up the way I want to, super thin. Yeah, exactly. That's the wire for the fence. I kind of like that wire.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, thankfully that guy with horns is behind the fence, right? Yeah, it's the subtlety of it. And the variations, right? It's implied. And those posts do have these light, especially those metal posts, they have the white tips to them. Wouldn't hurt to have that in there. On this one. I wouldn't want it on that one.
It would detract from the cow.
It would detract from the cow. Yeah, exactly. You are learning something.
I guessed right.
And I'm going to go with a yellow sort of tip to it. There we go. I love that. It's the little stuff that, and we're just talking about, now we're just finishing the painting. Finishing it off means you're just putting in the details. And really, I mean, this part could just take forever if you want, just depending on, the time you have. And
Don't forget the sheep legs.
oh, thanks. We want the sheep legs. It's a rock. What are you talking about? And I don't want it to be orange because we've got that fence post as an orange.
Oh, right.
So I'm going to go with a cooler tone. See, there's not a fence post there, but I kind of like having it there. So the reason for putting the fence post there is to break up space. So that's why I decided to put there. Complete invention. Yes, definitely not in the photo. And one could say, well, why is that one all crooked? Say, well, it's just
The cow ran into it.
the cow ran into it and they had there we go. I like that. So we talk about detail in the painting when we have simple shapes like just softening these edges up there. Because that keeps that area fairly simple. Especially right there. That's real simple. There's a little shed in far off distance right about there. And that's something that I could consider. To do with large painting, I probably would consider it. Little things like that. There's a lot of grass that comes around. There's beautiful little light accents that sort of carry the eye around. There's a lot of detail that I see in there that for a big painting are almost essential. But for something this scale, I just want to get just what is absolutely necessary, the real vital stuff. All the other stuff would be essential for a large painting, but not for a small painting. I love those drips. I almost took them out, and I was like, well, let's see if we can keep them. I managed to keep them. I kind of like them. Yeah, you can always take them out later. If it works, it works. That's the nice thing about a small sketch. You don't have to overthink. Now it's just spending time with the drawing end of things. I mean, I could see if I could put some of these straight, more horizontal, not straight, but more horizontal kind of things back there. Kind of give it some definition of that field as it moves back. Doesn't hurt. Well, if it does hurt, then just take them out. You don't need them. Remove it. See, I'm doing everything based on what I feel is necessary for the composition. It wouldn't hurt to go over this pattern just slightly, just so it's tucked in a little bit with a stroke or two that just sort of overlaps it. Pulls the eye back, but it just sort of incorporates things a little bit more. So the texture is not just sitting on top, one texture is not just sitting on top of everything. And in between the ear and the eye socket, there is a little shadow. And I'm almost done. Just did a little bit more to that ear. I just wanted to kind of put something dark in there just to bring it out a little bit more. I'll keep it the way this is. Yeah.
Would you sell it? Would you put it in the gallery?
Oh, so like for a larger painting, it depends. I mean, I have some that are just for just fun sketches, and then I'll just send it off to the gallery. And then other ones, I say, oh, there's something I need from this. I'll hold on to it for the moment. And then once but yeah, I mean, for like a sketch, I could say, well, I like this as a sketch, and I want to do more on this idea, so I'm going to hold on to the sketch until I'm finished with the idea. And I do that quite a bit. And then other times, it's just a sketch. Or take a picture, you know. If I feel like even if I could use it again, I'll just take a picture of it. Like if the gallery really needs something, they say, hey, we got a deadline coming up, which happens a lot. They say, well, you know, you're part of this show that's coming up. Where's your paintings? I'm like, oh, okay. Then I'll give them something. And if it's something I want or I'm still using, then I'll take a picture of it. And then I can work from that picture. This is the other trick for sharp, thin, straight lines. You can test it on your palette first. If you just use only the edge of a palette knife that's super sharp and straight, that'll do it too. Sometimes I will give you a nice, very, very thin, sharp line. You can. Yeah. I do it with watercolor. Either a palette knife, actually what even works better is like a little piece of plastic or paper, like a hard, sturdy cardboard paper. Like, you know, like old credit card or like those real heavy stocked business cards. Just dip that in the paint. Yeah, like a stamp. Same technique. But this is, I don't know, I think this is done. Yeah, I think it works.